The Ukraine War and its prices. The bilateral correlations between the Russian Federation and Ukraine are known as Russia-Ukraine ties. Upon the Ukrainian movement of dignity in 2014, unannounced Russian forces captured Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula, which Russia afterwards seized. While pro-Russia rebels fought the Ukrainian army for possession of eastern Ukraine, these actions signaled the commencement of the Russia-Ukrainian War. On February 24, 2022, in a severe increase in the conflict, Russia started a massive annexation of the Ukrainian heartland along with a broad front, forcing Ukraine to dissolve all established diplomatic connections with Russia. As per the United Nations, the conflict has killed almost 3,000 civilians and forced more than 7 million people to flee their homes. Another 5 million Ukrainians have fled to nearby nations due to the war, most of whom have moved to Poland, a NATO state where the US and other allies are assisting in the refugee surge. The conflict is still ongoing. The current situation in Ukraine. The number of deaths and human misery in Ukraine's city areas, communities and villages is rising daily. In or near residential areas, armed units use weapon loadouts with wide area consequences, such as missile launches, huge artillery shells and rockets, and even airstrikes. Private homes, multi-story residential complexes, government buildings, health and educational centres, water stations and power generation systems have been demolished in large numbers, devastatingly impacting civilians' rights and their right to health, nourishment, water, schooling and shelter. The number of civilians killed and the damage to civilian property imply that the precepts of distinction, reasonableness, the rule of practicable precautions and the restriction of attacks against civilians are all broken. Finally, as the Secretary General asserted, the war is dragging on and the Ukrainian people have to live in misery. Now is the time to put an end to the conflict. Amount of casualties on each side. Russia may have lost 25% of its preliminary fighting force in the months of combat. These casualty figures are not on the level of World War II, but they are significant compared to the Russian military's current size. Even though additional troops and replacements can help compensate for some of these losses, the decline of trained soldiers will impede military actions and have a political impact. To date, Russia has suffered substantial damage. Russia has lost 7,000 and 15,000 army troops as per estimates. Around 190,000 troops made up the initial invasion force. As a result, Russia's initial military force may have been reduced by about a quarter. Russia has sent additional forces and substitutions into Ukraine to reimburse for these damages, which will partially offset them. Russia does not have a well-equipped reserve force. Former soldiers could theoretically be returned to duty, and Russia is most likely doing so, but these military men get no preparation or follow-up after their active duty. Thousands more citizens have died in Ukraine's war, which has lasted over 2 months, than the official UN mortality rate of 3,381. Overall to date we have corroborated 7,061 civilian casualties, with 3,381 killed and 3,680 injured across the country since the beginning of the armed attack by the Russian Federation. The actual figures are higher and we are working to corroborate every single incident, UN Human Rights Sector Head Matilda Bogner said at a press conference. We have been working on estimates, but all I can say for now is that it is thousands higher than the numbers we have currently given to you, she said. The UN team discovered that the Russians were assaulting senselessly and unjustly, mainly due to the high loss of civilian life and the extent of collapse and harm to civilian objects. Dozens of educational and health facilities were heavily damaged all across the state, as were at least 50 Christian, Jewish, and Muslim religious buildings across various sectors, half of which were severely damaged and could not be used, according to the UN. Bogner mentioned cases of Russian troops detaining civilians, mainly young men, and transporting them to Belarus and then Russia, where they were then held in the pre-trial detention center. The price for the world. The invasion of Russia has exacerbated an already precarious situation for the electricity market, especially in Europe. The goal of the oil and gas industry, in collaboration with government agencies, is to reduce the risk of disrupted Russian oil and gas supplies. However, in the long run, the market must improve its perseverance and relevance in an ever-changing energy landscape. The economic consequences of Russia's incursion of Ukraine a week ago have resonated worldwide, leaving many families concerned about how the conflict will affect their finances. Prices are likely to rise, particularly gasoline, and have already done so. In addition, economists predict that prices for food and consumer goods like cell phones will increase. Inflation would be caused primarily by the unavailability and increasing costs of raw materials such as oil, wheat, and metals such as palladium, all of which Russia produces in vast volumes. It would also happen at a time when buyer costs are increasing at their fastest rate in 40 years. However, economists predict that some of the inflation will take several months to show up. Following the flowability of the military conflict, the concept of Western sanctions on Russia, and the probability of even harsher sanctions, the timeframe and scale are difficult to anticipate. As per Julia Friedlander, a senior analyst at the Atlantic Council, what makes projecting this stuff so difficult is, all of these measures are so new and so unprecedented as a model. What's it like to take the 11th largest economy offline in the course of days? She wondered. To combat inflation, the Federal Reserve is expecting to begin increasing interest rates this month. Oil and gasoline. According to economic experts, consumers are expected to experience the conflict's inflationary effects in the short time frame through the cost of gasoline. Gas prices have increased since Russia's saber rattling began, well before the attack on February 24th. The primary element of gasoline is crude oil. As per the Energy Information Administration, it accounts for 56% of what Americans spend at the pump. As a result, rising oil prices frequently result in higher gasoline prices. The conflict between Ukraine and Russia shifted US oil prices to their peak point since 2008. The global price reached an all-time high, surpassing that of 2012. According to official statistics, gasoline prices have risen 33 cents per gallon from 2022 to $3.61 per gallon. According to Andrew Hunter, a senior US economics expert at Capital Economics, if increases in oil prices continue, the estimated price may soon overstep $4 per gallon. In a research report, Hunter estimated that this price would result in an extra $75 billion annual expenditure by families to fill their fuel tanks. According to him, the evolution could reduce households' expendable cash by 0.5%. The single biggest issue is definitely what's happening to oil prices, Hunter said of the crisis's impact on consumers. It looks like there's more pain to come, unfortunately. In his State of the Union address, President Joe Biden mentioned the potential financial fallout. To mitigate this price surge, the United States and 30 other states are issuing 60 million barrels of crude oil from decisive stockpiles, the fourth time such a coordinated release has occurred. A Russian dictator invading a foreign country has cost all around the world, Biden said. These steps will help blunt gas prices here at home. Food. According to economists, the Russia-Ukraine dispute can affect commodity prices, though the consequences will be felt most intensely overseas. Russia exports the most wheat in the world. Ukraine and Russia contribute to approximately a third of all global wheat exports. Wheat prices have reached their highest point in 14 years. If manufacturers pass on the greater costs to the consumer, this could impact the value of flour, pasta, grains, baked goods, and other wheat-based foods. Other products exported by Russia and Ukraine include barley, sunflower oil, and corn. As per Hunter, the United States is a major exporter of farm products, especially white flour, corn, and soybeans, which would probably lessen the impact. I wouldn't expect grocery prices to suddenly start rising now because of these moves, he said. If they're sustained, it's something you could potentially start to see over the coming months. Friedlander believes that rising food prices are more of a problem in the developing world. For instance, Turkey, Egypt, and Kazakhstan are the three largest buyers of Russian wheat. I don't think it will affect the price of bread in Ohio, Friedlander said. Automobiles and technology. Russia is the world's biggest palladium manufacturer, delivering roughly 1/3 of global consumption. Palladium is a metal used to make semiconductor materials, also defined as microchips, used in various home appliances products such as smartphones, computers, televisions, and digital cameras. Ukraine and Russia also deliver most of the neon used in chip production in the United States. Palladium is also a crucial element of catalytic converters, which reduce vehicle emissions. Friedlander said of Russia's palladium exports, "That will trickle down to the production of high-end technologies that relies on the Russian market. It'll take a while for the price of the iPhone you buy to rise, but it could happen eventually." That's all there is for today. Leave us a comment of your thoughts on the Ukraine war and its prices. Also, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed the video. Click the notification bell to never miss our videos. Stay tuned.